Well, I'm excited now to welcome John Ahrens and Dan Morris, and thank you again, Patrick, for being with us. We're going to launch into I'm sure, amazing conversation now with John and Dan. So, you guys have always been thought leaders to me, and I just respect you both so much. And I know we're going to have a perspective here with John, which is a sort of larger district, and then with Dan, all the baby ones. So I want to start out with just kind of, you give me your overview of where you're at right now. Like really, where's your attention right now? John, you first.
Thank you. Welcome to my empty basement. I was away traveling for 2 weeks and I came back to a flooded basement. So I'm starting at ground zero, which I think a lot of our schools can identify with. I've enjoyed hearing the conversations because I've heard so much positivity about the collaboration and how we can jump forward and not erase what we've learned over the last couple months. Because I think it's truly important to realize that we're not going back, we're going forward, and we need to carry those lessons learned into the future. We're a district of about 33,000 students in 60 schools. And now we're adding the 61st school, and that is the continuation of an online school. We had talked about the hybrid models that we're going through and the online models that we're going through, and we needed to embrace the fact that a lot of our students are thriving in the online market. And I think that's an important thing to discuss. As I said, I just got back a couple days ago from 2 weeks of travel. And I had the opportunity to talk with one of our high schools, and I'd been hearing from some of the parents that students are all struggling. And so I asked that question explicitly of our administration, and they said, no, the numbers haven't shifted entirely, but the people that are struggling are different. And I caught that as a sign of saying, okay, we need to get back to online learning, to the classroom, but the online is really giving us opportunity to personalize an educational pathway that we've never had. And I heard that over and over again. How do we personalize our teachers' ability to teach content? How do we personalize the students' ability to pick that content and choose a book of their interest? And that's what I'm working on right now. I approached our superintendent just before Thanksgiving, and I informed him that what I would like to do moving forward with my own interests, and I've been a true proponent of a fan of technology, is to bring online classes to our schools. And it'll do several things. One, it's going to allow our students to take a class from anywhere, but I want to record those classes so the students can review content, bring it up to their speed and their time frames. And if they've missed a certain segment of algebra or what we're sticking with is the higher ed classes to start with, because I think that's where we're going to get the most bang from our buck, and we're going to learn from our students what we're doing correctly. So there's a lot of pathways forward in terms of, I've got a lot of things going through my head, but here's the meat and potatoes. The meat and potatoes is if we record our classes, we'll give our students the ability to review content. And what I really hope going down the future is our rural schools are really having a distinctive problem, mostly with extracurricular. The cores, they're kind of handling, but they're dwindling in size. So they have no pathway to personalized education for their students. If we can share our higher ed classes, and we have 4 P-Tech programs, we're adding a 5th one, which is going to be P-Teach, and allow those students to take classes remotely. We're going to solve a big issue with basically our rural districts on the verge of closing down, and we hope that we can offer some pathways to enlightening opportunities for the teachers and the students. But I'd love to talk about that.
Yeah, I want to come back to that because it made my mind go in a certain direction. I want to come back to you about that. But this thing that you just commented on, I'm going to now bring back to Dan, because I just heard from another good friend of mine in Arkansas that some of their districts are probably going to fold.
Yep.
It's happening. So Dan, I have so much respect for you, and you do so much for your rural guys. Talk to me about what's happening and where your attention is at in terms of bringing order and operations and fabulousness. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Is that better now?
Yep, can hear you now.
Bringing order and order, the whole thing. I don't know if that's what we're doing, but I want to start a little bit by jumping off where John started. Where we are right now is actually dealing with the smallest school districts in the state. Mm-hmm. And to just give you an example of what happened, last year we had about 4,000 registrations. We had 67,000 student registrations this year. In 132 school districts, 60% of them small rural. And what's interesting,
into the solutions you offer.
Into the solutions we offer, okay. Which is interesting. Over 250 already ready online courses taught by Colorado teachers.
Wow.
We have 250. We have a bigger catalog than any school district in the state of Colorado. Kids from Campo, but actually I have to tell a story. In Campo, we have 100% of the senior class that have access to 250 courses. That's one kid. There's one kid in that high school, and he actually has more options than some of my friends in Cherry Creek have, in all honesty. And that's the kind of thing that John, I think what you're talking about is providing those kind of options to small rural districts. But I, like John, think that the same opportunity needs to exist in the bigger districts, the same thing. So I just totally agree with what John was talking about, is providing those options in the big districts. Interesting, I just got off a call, John, with your innovation center, and we are doing a statewide project teaching robotics statewide with our teachers and some content we've provided in partnership. Those are the kind of collaborations that we're focused on right now. That's what we're trying to leverage long term. And I'm really excited about it. Huh?
I love this, Dan, on so many levels, because quite frankly, a lot of the other states, everyone's on their own.
Yes.
And you guys have buddied up. I've watched you buddy up for years. When I came out there physically with our physical events, I watched the dynamic, come togetherness in Colorado. This is awesome. Go on.
Well, I think we have some challenges here, to say the least. Is that I've said this many times, is we tend in Colorado to reinvent the wheel like a lot of states do. But my belief is that with what we've got going in some bigger districts, but what we've really done in small rural districts, we can begin to learn from each other in ways that I don't think we've even thought about. And I think that I've listened to some of the conversations over the last couple of days. And I don't think we're going to go backwards. Things have changed. I mean, I've been an online advocate for a lot of years, as you know, and I think it's going to look totally different for all school districts now. One of the interesting things we're dealing with is that we are now getting districts who are bringing their kids back in, as we know. But we got districts calling me today saying our kids want to stay remote. Our kids want to have the options that you're providing them. And I'm not saying this, and I think this is important, not as an alternative to what the big districts and the school districts are offering in the building, but as an alternative and a learning strategy that addresses the needs of kids that sometimes haven't been successful. And so we're finding that a lot of kids who were not successful in brick and mortar, but got forced into remote learning online, are actually finding success in ways they never thought of before.
Right.
And we're going to have to find ways to leverage that. So John, I hear you saying the same thing.
Yeah.
And so that's where our energy is right now. We're trying to figure that out for the coming year. I'm looking at a spreadsheet here that, and actually I have to say this to to John, so I want you to know, is we actually have St. Vrain students enrolled in our program because they couldn't find the option in their buildings locally. And that's not a rap on them. That's simply that the need of that school and that kid at that time didn't match, and we provide that option. So we've got to figure out ways to leverage that in better ways.
And if we could just jump in for a second,
Yeah.
that's part of my opportunities of teaching the classes online, because we call ourselves, you have the ability to open and enroll in another school, but our district is 410 square miles. So the kids out in Lyons can't come to Erie to take an aerospace class. They have to do it remotely. And so we have to figure out how to do that pathway to allow those kids to stay in their own communities and take a class that they want to parallel with. So I agree with you 100%. Our district is a big one, but yeah, I'm glad our kids are taking classes at your school. I hope it's reciprocated, and I love the fact that you're doing the Innovation Center. Marshall, who teaches the aerospace class out of there, is a champion, and I had told him my plan of trying to go online, and he said, I can't be 100% online, but I can be probably about 80% online. So what we talked about is we'd like to find an old UPS truck where he could take all this material and visit Erie one day and Lyons another day and Meade another day and Niwot another day, but be hooked up in that caravan to teach it remotely also. So I just wanted to give you that update too.
Yeah, isn't this interesting? So you guys are both thinking along the same lines, like creating this new matrix of options all over the place. But I want to come to something that I sort of thought of, John, when you first started talking, and then also with you, Dan, because in my memory, I'm older. I remember distance learning back in the day it was not good. And the reality was, when I looked at it as a software developer, I thought, well, that's because the quality of the navigation totally is bad. And they weren't really interacting with teachers. It was like a video or some droning person on the screen, as boring as possible. And the actual humanity of it was like, ah. And we have to have, coming out of the pandemic, if we're going to do online, it better be having some real human connection. So I want to go back to that human connection. So John, and then you, Dan, how are we making sure that if we're going to be this flexible hybrid remote, maybe you're in the building one day a week and then you're over here and maybe you go over to that other thing and and then most of it's online. How are you making sure that this is a human enterprise, even as much as you're deploying technology, bringing it back, making sure the kids are meeting each other and teaching is,
We're not going backwards. In the beginning of the pandemic, we've had a one-to-one program, except for our kindergarten to fifth graders. They had the option to have 10 computers in the classroom. As soon as the pandemic started, we outfitted everybody in the district with their own iPad, and we had conversations: are we going to take those away afterwards? And everyone was like, no, we can't go backwards. So I think that's the first thing, is you want to look at what's working and move in that direction. I'm going to say, with our talks on trying to keep the online, I don't want to replace the classroom by any means. I want to enhance it. And so if we offer this online ability to have kids attending from a different school to an aerospace program or a leadership program or a computer program or the myriad of options that we have, I think it's going to be tough, but interestingly enough, we have a Teach program coming up in our district, and that's going to help us, because I think we're going to get kids that are on the pathway to earning their teaching certificates to help out in the classroom. We're going to need to hire teachers also in the classroom that are in the remote settings, because you're right, we can't just let a student just bask in the glow of a computer screen. He needs to have that interaction. He needs to have a teacher guiding his decisions and someone to just play off of. You want to ask questions. That's actually, I just reminded myself, that's one of the biggest things we have to figure out is how we're going to be able to have the online classroom and have the kids on camera, because I don't think it works without it. So there's going to have to be some legislative changes, because right now we're breaking laws by putting kids on camera. I don't agree with it in terms of their best learning is going to be asking questions and getting that return response. And we're going to have that recorded. So we've got to figure out some legislative things as well. There's a lot of excitement going on. And as I said in the beginning, the type of student that's having success or failures has migrated under the online principles. So there's no way we're getting rid of the classroom. The classroom is paramount to learning. But if we're going to have personalization, if we're going to have bring in industry standards, we need to have that conversation with a broader audience.
Okay. All right, Dan, what are your thoughts on making sure some of the human inspiration points are interwoven?
Every one of our courses comes with a teacher who's in the classroom with the kids. There was no such thing as an unmoderated course at CBLS. And what we're convinced of, that you have to develop a partnership now, and every district is going to be different, but we've developed a partnership with 132 school districts. 60% of them have less than 500 students. And John, I kind of agree with you that it would be nice to have the video, but I'll tell you that the 130 of those districts aren't going to be able to sustain a video component. They just don't have the bandwidth, and that's an issue. But what we've done is built a partnership with these small rural districts so that there's a teacher and a person and a touch point in every building working with the kids that are in an online environment in partnership with our online teachers. We are changing the job of what a teacher is and does. We are modifying what the expectations are. A teacher cannot be alone. And one of the big things that we're working about, and came up in another one, is we're working with how do you deal with kids with IEPs and 504s in an online environment.
That's a big deal.
Interesting enough, some of the smallest school districts in the state have cracked that problem. And it's hard for the bigger districts to do it. But we actually have one of the smallest school districts in the state out in West End, Nucla, have over 250 registrations in our courses. If you know Nucla, they only have 150 kids.
Right. We
are delivering special ed, IEP support online, but we're doing it because we're keeping the person, the touch involved with the kids. The kids never feel like they've gone to an online program that's separate from their school district. It is integrated in an integral way. And that's the challenge. That's a challenge to do that. Actually, John, in some ways, it's a lot easier for the smaller district to make that than it is for a bigger district. I get that, having taught in a good district. That's a tough thing to do. So there's a lot of great learning going on around how to maintain that touch. And I just have to add one thing. When we started this, and we had to hire 105 teachers in 2 weeks. We ramped up with 105.
Where did you find them?
Yeah, where did you find them?
I took them from John.
I offered them a 4-day week.
That's right. But they're not, and so I want to emphasize what we are, John, here. We're not a school, we're a supplemental program that actually are there to support John and all the small rural districts.
You're a membership. You're a membership, right, Dan? Yeah.
No, it's not really a membership. It's actually a state-supported program subsidized by legislation. And we offer only supplemental to BOCES, charter schools, and public school districts. We're not an online school. We're not an online program. We're not an online destination, is the way I put that. We're there to say, if John comes to me and says, I need 8 kids to take Spanish 3 in middle school, we can offer that option. If I get a kid from NUCLA who needs to take AP Calculus or concurrent enrollment, I can offer that on a one-on-one basis. So it's kind of a different approach from being an online school. We're there to really supplement, and as John described what he wants to do, we'll be there to offer him all kinds of courses and pathways that maybe it would be hard even for St. Vrain to offer in a one-off situation. That's really our mission.
With that. Them's fighting words, Dan. Them's fighting words.
Well, no, I think that we're there to support that, though. See, what I'm saying is,
yeah,
we're there to offer some things that are even hard for big school districts to offer.
Yeah, and I think this model is one that's needed in other places. I know that California is sort of supplementing what they've attached to charter. Right. I think Stride, which was formerly K-12 Incorporated Fuel Education, owns that contract, and then Innovations in Ed owns another contract. And a lot of students were just going that. We talked to another state just last week, they lost a huge percentage of their students to this company called Epic.
Yes.
And so the matrix of all the different options is coming forward. And that's why I'm a little bit insistent on looking at how you use people, because you were able to find 105 teachers somehow miraculously. That's not the case nationwide. We have a huge teacher shortage. No. So my attention is on how do you leverage the best of your humans and not overwhelm them, and let the technology do some of the heavy lift of all the traffic, because there's a lot of digital traffic. Dan, I know you know what I mean by that, but I'm going to come back to John about that, because John, as you're imagining courses, right, like some other stuff that you guys could be doing online, there's a different articulation of how those are created now, that you have asynchronous learning and then synchronous. Remember college? Like if you were around, or you're seeing a college now, it's like you're not in class all the time. Yeah, classrooms are important, but they almost can be like corporate America has them. It's like, I'm just going to reserve this classroom because we actually have a moment of togetherness coming up. But other than that, I'm not in there. As a teacher, I'm not in there all the time. I don't need to be. Maybe in the kindergarten classrooms we need to. But it's like we're mutating all of time and space right now. Yeah. And we're looking at humans as the glorification of what we can really use them for, because technology can do so much more heavy lift. So what are your thoughts on that vein? Because what I'm hoping to do with you is spark that direction, and everybody that's on the line right now is including Dan. The future direction is not the same formula for time, space, and resources in teaching.
Exactly. What I'm envisioning with this online program, we've had an online school and it's been very successful. Last year, we took it, it was operating out of a church basement and moving around. We actually purchased them a building last year, and it was the first year they had a home. And it was interesting. What we saw is we saw all these online students who were required to come in once or twice a week to touch base with the students started coming in 3, even 4 days a week. So it really graded, what was online, but they just felt that they had found a home. And I think that's what we're talking about now when we have our online programs growing. We have, I'm not exactly sure, but I think we have 3,100 students right now that have chosen to stay online during this.
That's normal. That's about 20% are not coming back.
Right.
Yeah. And that's not going to stop. So we need to embrace those students. And that was a long discussion too, because are we overtaxing our teachers? Are we asking them to do so much? I turn that conversation into how we can enhance the teacher's experience by capturing not all students created equal and not all teachers are created equal. There are some teachers that just have that fluid ability to teach online. Yeah. We can not only help them do that, but also capture it. That's going to be PD for our other teachers to look and take little nuggets and say, this works. This is something I can bring to my own classroom.
Yeah, but let's go back to that one point where you were talking about, kids are still, you put an online school up. Okay, so you have a second rail.
Yep.
Right. then you gave it a physical presence, and then people people are using the physical presence too. This is kind of like when Amazon was doing everything online, and then they bought Whole Foods.
Yeah.
Now they have a physical presence. Walmart did it backwards. They had a physical presence everywhere, and now they have it also online. That's the engineering moment that we're in for everything.
It is.
And it's your mix that I'm the most interested in, and how you manifest yourselves in the future, where it's so flexible. And
I think that enhances the personalization. And what I see happening is, if you capture that student who has found their home, whether that be online, whether that be a hybrid, or whether that be in the classroom, they bring that enthusiasm to all their other classes. So one class that a student might be taking online, and in the hybrid mode, when he goes back to his home base or his community, he'll bring that excitement with him. And so I don't think you can say this is the only place a student can learn. But if we find that matrix, if we find that mix that enhances their pathway to choose the classes that they really want in the manner that they want, and we're starting, unlike Dan's classes, we're gonna, I believe, and I'm speaking ahead of time because we haven't done this particularly yet, but we're going to start with our APs and our capstones and our STEM high-end programs, so that students can share those classes under the different rooftops. And that's the best way to do it. I think the first thing that I thought about is, how do we let our students take advantage of programs that are offered in a different, we basically have a different district with 410 square miles. There's a lot of different opportunities. So our students are really tapping into an opportunity that, as I said at the beginning, we can't have them open enroll. We have to let them stay in their community and take the classes. So I just have a real, there's a couple of things, I'm going backwards, but I'm just going to say, if we can teach to the students that want to take the classes, and then they bring that enthusiasm back to the schools that they're at, and they can talk to their classmates and say, you know what, I'm taking this cyber security class that blows my mind, and then they can show it on a recorded class, we're going to attract more students. We're going to get more students excited about the educational process, and that's going to enhance the schools all around the district. So now we really become not a microcosm of, one school is operating at a different level than another school. They're now becoming mixed together. And that mixture is really what I'm hoping, Dan's saying he's offering classes to our students, and they might be more of the base curriculum, and we might be able to offer the cybersecurity and the innovation center classes, and classes that aren't around the whole state, but they should be. But due to cost, due to parameters of not being able to have the infrastructure of technology everywhere, and I believe we need to have technology everywhere, those opportunities now enhance not only our students, but students around the state. And I'm really hoping that we're going to be graying the areas of high school education, because we're already talking in our district where we go up to grades 14 because we offer an associate degree pathway for our students. But I'm hoping we're going to do the same thing with industry standards. And then we're going to be able to offer some educational pathways to our communities, so they can come in and take an IBM class, take an Apple class, get certification in industry standards that raises their ability to make a greater income.
Yeah, I love this. I love the way you think, and your other leaders there in St. Vrain. You guys are marketers. You're thinking with melding into the community. You talk to IBM. You guys do some awesome stuff. Okay, so listen, Dan, I know you're chomping at the bit. I want to tell you, your work is right. I think it's surpassing what I'm hearing from North and South Dakota, and they've got kids that are 100 miles from any building. I'm super excited about your work, and it keeps expanding. Tell us again those numbers from 4,000.
We had 4,000 registrations last year. We had 66,000 this year. But what we've done is we've expanded the program, and actually we've learned from some of the other states. I will say Wisconsin, Montana, we're partnering with some of them. We are actually not only providing the teacher and the courses with the extensive catalog that is just incredible, I think. We are now also giving small rural districts access to our LMS and all of our digital content. And we're training their teachers on how to teach that content. So when we did the 66,000, 44,000 students were taught by the local district teachers this year in a learning management.
You're a blend in. You're like, hey,
totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And I think this is where I am on this, is that I think we've treated online as a destination, someplace kids go.
Yeah.
It can't be someplace kids go. It's got to be in their building, where they live. It's an option. It's an instructional strategy that they have access to, and they can still play football, be on the basketball team, and be in the band, and have an online life that brings and expands those personal options. And what I'm excited about is, and again, I come back, I'm kind of a rural advocate, as you know. In many ways, it's easier for small rural districts to do that because it's a lifeline for them right now. It comes back to if they don't do that, they won't be able to survive. And kind of going back to what John was talking about in the beginning. So that's going to be a key.
Yeah, it's going to be key. But I feel like where you guys are both going, and I know you have so many brilliant leaders, and Lisa Len from Denver Public is a little bit like this, and Harris Public Schools is thinking this way, is that the future is this interblend. It's hybrid at the district brand level of, I'm going to use teachers from over there, from Dan, and I got mine doing these interesting things that John wants to do in aerospace stuff because it's super cool, and Dan's not already doing it, and we're not already doing it in this other stuff. And it's almost like you just blew the roof off of a global pattern and said, I'm going to just be this brand. So because humans affiliate to the local humans, but then your access and your personalized pathway is literally being matrixed from all over the world, and all these people over here that are 300 miles away. That is what we're hoping people start thinking with. Because, a lot of superintendents are still running buildings, making sure the lights are on, the doors are unlocked, and people are walled off in their classrooms. That's the truth. But you guys are over there in Colorado, and I just love you for this. You just blew the roof off. Like, that's where your minds are at. Am I right?
Well, I hope so.
Yeah.
It's shall I say it's been a challenging year, but I will say this, and I'll say it again. Education is not going to go back to where it was backwards.
No more normal.
Normal, I don't know what that is. But I also don't use the word easy anymore. It's simple. It's hard. And it's going to fundamentally, and I'm a teacher advocate, I've been a teacher all my life. It's going to fundamentally also change what the expectations are. It is to be a teacher. A lot like it's going to change what a superintendent does and a principal, and probably a school board member too, John, as we think about this. We're all going to be challenged in ways that I don't think we've ever thought about before. So I'm excited about the opportunities.
John?
I agree wholeheartedly. First, I have to commend our teachers. Incredible pivots that they've had to do. Not one, just they're pivoting all the time. And we've got rock stars like you can't believe. We also have rock star students. This next year, we're bringing up a cybersecurity program that was initiated by students. And I think what we might be talking about in Colorado is the fact that you need to have a nonlinear approach to where ideas are being born, and allow that pathway to find its groove. We do not have all directives coming down from the superintendent. We do not have all curriculum being introduced by our teachers, but we have a mixture of pathways that our teachers, our students have opportunity to, and they know their voices are important. And I think that's what I'm trying to get to, is we've got to make sure that the voices feel not only, well, they feel empowered. They feel that they do have a voice, and that really makes the difference in education. We know that when we started with technology, one of the hardest things for our teachers was the fact that they weren't the smartest ones in the classroom anymore. It was now Google or Siri or just the pathway to have the internet in their schools.
Right.
And so that changed how teaching took place. Now we have to figure out how we take those best lessons and the best teachers and the best students and allow them to have a conversation to grow that formula to a much larger audience. And I hope it starts, in under brick and mortar in one school, and migrates to another school, migrates to the district, and then migrates through Colorado. Then we've got some excitement going on. Then we have teachers who feel that they're empowered again, because the conversations I have had with some teachers is, this isn't how I was taught to teach. So I have to relearn a lot of these lessons. How do I do it? Well, by allowing us to record some of the best teachers and putting them online and let the other teachers enhance their professional development.
Yeah, and sometimes that isn't even teaching. I mean, the definition of teaching to most teachers is a lecture.
Yeah.
And that's not the definition anymore. So I think David Jarobi, David, I always butcher your name. I'm so sorry. I think you're still online. If you want to unmute, you gave us a presentation yesterday from Harrison School District that was really brilliant. You're looking at this flexible remodel. So I want to ask you and John and Dan one final thing to run comments around on, and that is, I believe equity is partially the issue of a structure that was built to manufacture every kid into a sameness. And we can't do that anymore. And what we're all striving for in structure now is to disaggregate the old systemicness of our structures. It's hard. It's a very human struggle to change everybody and disaggregate courses into different things and matrix everything. It's hard, but it's an equity issue. So let's go round the robin. And David, since I just called on you to join back in, can you go first about the systemicness and the equity that you're hoping for with personalized learning?
Yeah, and I want to say I really appreciate what St. Vrain does. They are a leader in a lot of aspects of what's going on in the work that Dan's doing. From our perspective, we are a high title district, so equity is certainly key in our minds, because opportunity doesn't equal equity. There's got to be access. We have to look at how we remove those barriers. And so, I think that this gives us an opportunity to rethink who our best students are and not get stuck in how the best students, I guess, in what environment, because a lot of times we have students who thrive in a traditional environment, like you had said, I think, Leilana, earlier, are some of the ones, or maybe Dan said, are now struggling in the online. Yet there's other students who are really, now that we've taken down some system barriers, are able to really access their education due to limitations that have been out of their control. So that's what we're excited about, is We're starting a K-8 e-learning school. It's something we're calling HighFlex Plus, which is online, in person, and then also sometimes it's you get to choose. And you kind of have a playlist for the week that kind of sets you up on your learning path. So some days you may be, synchronous online with your teacher. You might be doing an activity by yourself or with a small group. One of the things we're looking at emphasizing to kind of help with that equity piece is the role of what we're calling a learning coach, which could be a family member that we've trained, or when that's not available, having staff. They're not teachers, they're not full teachers, but that we've trained individuals how to connect with the students, how to monitor the students, how to encourage and do some of that small group in-person activities to make sure that everyone's successful. Because one of the things we've seen previously, when it, I guess, wasn't high stakes, is a lot of online schools or classes didn't have a real high completion rate. So that's going to be key, is monitoring the completers and making sure that students do follow through and get the education they deserve.
Great, thank you. Okay, so now I'm going to go to Dan and then let John sort of do the wrap up. Dan, your idea of, sort of the system, the old way, how it was in itself, its structure was not equitable, and kind of what you're seeing the future be.
Well, what I see with the options that we have online is there's an equity now being provided to kids and students in what options they have to choose from. That wasn't there before in the typical school that all of us in here went to. We didn't have that unless we went to some very special schools. And now every kid in the state actually has the equity of an option, of selecting an option of interest and personalization they've never had before. Now, it may be online. There may be challenges involved in that equity, bandwidth, John, that we talked about, and all of those other things. There are some of those challenges. But now those students have the opportunity to have that equal opportunity. I'm very frank about this. The one senior in Campo, Colorado, has the option to pick more courses than St. Vrain Valley. Now, it doesn't mean that they're ready for it or they have the delivery or anything else, but they have that equity of an option. Does that make sense?
That's
what I'm trying to say on that? And then the other thing is that, and this is something that we're just seeing coming up. I was just involved in a conversation with a researcher who contacted me, and they're doing research on some of the kids who have IEPs, EEL, 504 challenges. And what they're doing in studying this is that 20% of those kids who have challenges are saying the online opportunity has provided more access and equity for them than they ever had in the brick and mortar. And it's because, John, it goes back to the repetition that we're able to provide in a digital environment, the relearning and the reteaching that they can do somewhat on their own, but they also have someone on the side there. So there's all kinds of areas that are opening up here. And I'm going to close by, and I've been around a while. I've retired a few times, but there's an educational approach here that allows us to address learning styles in a more equitable way than we ever have before in the 50 years I've been doing this.
This is awesome. This is awesome. And Patrick O'Connor's on the line. He just said, like Burger King from 1974, have it your way.
That's right.
Yeah. Thanks, Patrick. Okay, so John, wrap us up. What's your viewpoint of how the system is never going to be the same and how that may be more equitable?
I love that phrase, equitable, and I think that's a conversation we've been having forever. But yes, we're enhanced with the online platforms that are in front of us right now. And I think people have to first look at the fact that online isn't turning on your computer and having a diatribe come at you and a lecture come at you. We have to set up an online platform that's two-way. or maybe even three-way. Allow them to ask questions in the classroom, allow them to ask questions online, and enhance it with a teacher in the classroom to help those students. My original vision was to get rid of absenteeism, to do away with the class that you might not have understood the content. And then it grew from there. Then it grew into an equity question. Then it grew into how do we allow students to take classes that they physically can't manifest a drive of 20 miles during the school day to attend another class in a different school, or at the Innovation Center. The Innovation Center is a prime example of great programs that should be offered to every student, and they are, but you had to figure out how to have a free period or bump it up against lunch or have it at the end of the day. So we had a lot of kids coming at the end of the day to take classes because it just made sense for their schedules. So now if we have the online programs and we're enhancing that with students who are also part of the process and teachers who can view these classes, we've got learning going through the full gamut. We've got the kids that are learning, the teachers that are learning, and I'm really hoping that we're going to be able to embrace the communities as a learning pathway also. The conversations that have gone on in education for a while now are grain. Is college really my pathway? Do I need that? Or am I going to be more enhanced by taking classes that are geared towards industry standards? And so when I walk out of the classroom, I can walk into a job. At the Innovation Center, we have Apple classes being offered, and I happened to be in Apple store about 2 months ago when there was only a window that you could walk up to and talk with the lady or the man that's manning the booth. And I happened to run into this one lady, and I told her, from St. Vrain. She's like, oh my God, I went to the Innovation Center. She's at CU, and she goes, I'm wasting my time going to class because it's all online. So I took a class at Apple. I'm now being charged with being a manager at Apple. Here she is, 20 years old. She's making $62,000 before she got a college degree. And I was like, that is incredible.
Oh yeah. This is definitely an economic stimulator. We had a district I toured when I was in New Jersey when we got to physically go there. They had set up an alternate network for all of their students just to hack, and they were training all their students how to be hackers.
Yep.
And those kids were even in high school getting offered part-time jobs and then full-time jobs upon graduation for over $100,000 a year, right on Wall Street, protecting the banks as white hat hackers. Huge, right? Yep. There's so many directions we could go in this. That'd be another hour though. And we should be kind of wrapping it up right now. I think this is an amazing conversation. I want to challenge the three of you for the future. And that is, we're in the middle of the structural shift. I'm expecting all of you guys to get your whole act together before next year when we come back to talk to you, or before our national gathering. And then next year, let's talk about the refinement of the quality of the experience. Because right now it still feels like all the big ideas are still percolating and we're still changing and shifting and the teachers are all getting on board. And so I'm going to give you 1 year. Is that enough? Do you think?
I love the conversation. And I think that's really important to know that where you start is not where you're going to end.
Yeah.
I'd like to challenge the three of us to sit down sometime in the same room, have this conversation, map out where the synergy is in the state, because it's out there.
Yeah,
sometimes we miss it because we're all in our silos. All three of us are in our silos. I get that.
Yeah, and invite Lisa and all the Pooter guys. The Pooter guys responded to our survey this year 8 times.
I have to say, I reached out to a couple of superintendents to try to start that conversation. I lost contact with the superintendents because we're losing a lot of them during this pandemic.
That's right.
Yeah, they're retiring. That's happening all over the place. Learning Council News Media has turned over 75,000 readers in the last year.
Well, I think there are opportunities in the state that I guess I would challenge all of us to figure out how to do that in Colorado. And it's not easy, like you said, John.
Yeah, let me know if I can help you guys. I'm happy to do that. Putting everybody in the same room because, you know, we've had every district attend almost in the course of the last 8 years. So we could probably do some work on that.
Well, I'd love to get Pooter in the room because they had 15,000 enrollments with us.
They're super cute too.
There's a story there.
Yeah, they're super cool. Well, good. I think this was a great conversation. I can keep you guys challenged. It's not over yet. I think maybe we have 5, 6, maybe 10 years of we're going to keep melting into another iteration. And it's fun. We got to make sure we tell the teachers and the other administrators that, like, listen, this is an opportunity. It's hard, but it's also so exciting.
Yeah.
You know, let's just keep the excitement up.
I was just gonna say, I always think of, you know, this is what the one room school went to, the multi-classroom. They saw this growth, and I think we're experiencing that same growth right now in terms of how do we navigate the new dynamics of getting our students prepared for the future, enhancing them with technology, but really giving them personalization.
Yeah. Yeah. And you guys are going global basically with the idea and locally branded. It's beautiful. So thanks all of you guys for being with us today. I really loved this conversation, and, you know, the video will be coming out in a little bit, and then thousands of people will be watching it online, not just from Colorado, but all over the country, and they'll be admiring you. Maybe they'll try to ping you. So watch out. But thank you, John. I miss being with you, and it was so fun to have you at our national gathering that one year. And you too, Dan. I miss seeing you, and I miss seeing you, David. But thanks again.
Firefly Computers and Trinity 3 Technology are now Trafera. And at Trafera, we don't measure success by how many devices we sell to schools. We measure success by how those devices are used to transform the learning experience. Today, we are at Hayworth Unified School District, and we want to share their story with you.
Our planning was definitely different this year. We spent the summer planning for the unknown. We didn't know if we would be in person or virtual or a combination of the two. Our focus was on preparing staff and families for a constantly changing learning environment.
What's wonderful is the opportunities that the technology provides. You know, with COVID, we're not able to get out and experience field trips this year. And so we can bring those learning experiences into the classroom.
What we did in Google Earth is, we would travel to like a ton of places like Japan or China, the Eiffel Tower, Washington, D.C., and see all those monuments, the Liberty Bell, the pyramids, and like all kinds of other stuff. You could maybe even see your home.
So we did this project where we pretended to go to different places, and we made these digital postcards that we could send to our friends and family.
The two companies that came together to form Trafera were really known for not only our educational hardware, but also our warranty services and our white glove services. And of course, we bring all of that historical knowledge and that expertise to the new company, and I think we do it better than what we ever have before. But we're using this as a platform to really rally around educators and empower them with the skills that they need through professional learning and through digital curriculum to be able to provide these kinds of learning experiences to students.
Moving forward, I feel like every teacher is more confident, better equipped, and more effective at educating students using the technology that we have. And when students are learning, that's all that really matters.
Trafera, transforming learning experiences.